If I'm happy, there we are. Thank you. Yeah. So thank you, colleagues, for joining today's Scrutiny Partnerships meeting on Wednesday, the 24th of June. So today is going to be a hot one. So just a reminder, happy to have ties off and shirt top buttons open and things like that there. Just keep comfortable, keep the fluids down, make sure you look after yourself and things like that there. So happy to take, cameras off when you're not speaking and help yourself to drink and things like that there just to get comfortable. So just the pre-warning on that side. And just as normal, just to remind colleagues that the Scrutiny Committee is being conducted on a hybrid basis today. It's going to be online. There's no one in a room together. In accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders. The Council's standing orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. A Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request, and the images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. Thank you, colleagues, as normal, to receive that there. So first of all, is there any apologies, please?
Apologies, Chair, from Councillor Bev Davis.
That's great. Thank you very much there. And is there any declarations of interest from any fellow councillors on the committee at all, please? I take that silence as a note. That's fine. Thank you, colleagues. So now we go on to the substantive report there, which is the Safer Newport Community Safety Partnership Annual Report 2025 to 2026. Who's leading the presentation there? Is it yourself, Tracy?
Shall I introduce, Chair, and then I'll hand over to Janice, Helen and Jason White.
No problem. Thank you. If you want to come on camera, I'll come off then. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for attending on such a warm evening. So, as the Chair has said, this is the annual report for the Safer Newport Partnership for last year. A few things to note, really. So this is a statutory partnership established by the Crime and Disorder Act, and my colleagues will take you through what that means. But the report is about partnership activity rather than any individual organisational activity. So we're covering very much the space that is the partnership and what value that partnership offers, particularly looking at last year. So members will be asked to consider how the report demonstrates partnership progress against its plan, and you've previously seen that plan for the period up to March 2026. You've scrutinised this at the mid-year report, so some of you may remember that, and that was presented in January. If I can just remind you who's on the call, so we have Chief Superintendent Jason White, who's co-chair of the Safer Newport Partnership. Our Director, Rhys Cornwall, is the other chair, but he's on holiday, so apologies from him. Together with Janice Dent and Helen Gordon from the Policy and Partnership team, who will take you through the presentation. We also have Sam Slater from the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner, also part of the partnership. Kevin Yates, I think, from the Fire Service, and we're also expecting a few colleagues from ABUHB. I'm not sure if they've joined yet. So as the committee has questions, we'll try and field those between us. Thanks very much. Can I hand over to, is it Janice who's sharing her screen? Janice?
Helen's going to share the screen and Jason's going to start us off, if that's okay with everyone.
Thank you. So we need to go to Helen's screen, I think, whoever's driving. Neil, do you want to take me off and Helen can share her screen?
Sorry, Tracy. Let's do that now.
I can come off as well, Neil, in the meantime, just so people can see the slides. Perfect.
Okay, can first of all, can everybody see this slide? Is it up on the screen for everyone else?
Yes,
we can, Jason.
Yeah,
thank you.
it's fine.
Okay. Good evening, everybody else. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason White, co-chair of Safer Newport and also head of neighbour policing for Gwent Police. So the purpose of this evening's presentation is to highlight the key achievements, but also the challenges that is set out in the Safer Newport annual report, which is for the period 2025 to 26, so that financial year. It's a report that is statutory and which is required of all community safety partnerships under the Crime and Disorder Act, which Tracy has just touched upon previously. The report summarises the activity delivered by Newport Community Safety Partnership during the reporting period, as I've just mentioned, but it also sets out progress against some of the priorities contained within the Safer Newport strategy, which is 2024 to 2029. Just in terms of Safer Newport itself, it operates within the statutory framework, which has been established by the Crime and Disorder Act of 1998, which requires community safety partnerships to coordinate local activity to prevent and respond to crime, disorder, and the wider community safety concerns. This framework supports both legislative compliance, but also effective strategic delivery. So the work of the partnership is also informed by other relevant legislation, which I'll touch upon, including some other statutory duties. So these, for instance, will include the serious violence duty, which is statutory guidance published in December 2022. Also the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which we're all aware of, 2015, and also the Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Act of 2015. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so what does this compose? So essentially, Safer Newport and the annual report, which I'm sure everybody's been cited on, consists of 4 priorities and 5 objectives. Just to go through those in order. So the very first one around antisocial behaviour. So the report and certainly the partnership is there to ensure that antisocial behaviour is understood through a partnership lens, with clear governance over emerging trends, repeat locations, vulnerable victims, but also we check and test the effectiveness of any intervention activity that the partnership undertakes. And I think it's important to realise here that the priority is to strengthen accountability for how intelligence, enforcement, prevention and support are coordinated across all of those agencies within the partnership, importantly to reduce harm and also to improve community confidence. The second area then is safer places. This is to ensure that Newport's key places, spaces and communities are monitored through a consistent partnership framework. And I think the key focus here is to ensure that we identify priority locations, but also align operational activity, but also identify and strengthen escalation routes and ensuring that we have a place-based response, which is both coordinated, visible and responsive to any change in localized risk. Next up then is serious violence crime. So this again is monitored through a clear partnership structure with effective links between prevention, enforcement, safeguarding and intelligence. Again, the priority is to maintain that visibility of risk, to strengthen any early indication of harm and exploitation, but also to ensure that activity is coordinated with partnerships, but also on a local, regional, and indeed on occasions national level as well. And then communities of focus. So the last of these is very much around ensuring that our communities within Newport and indeed the individuals within those communities who we identified as at risk of great harm, exploitation or abuse are indeed identified early and supported through effective partnership pathways. In terms of the 5 core objectives, they are, as you can see on the screen, to establish relevant and reliable intelligence sets. And again, this is very much focusing on building that consistent intelligence picture that supports evidence-led decision-making across Safer Newport and amongst our partners. The second objective then is very much around monitoring and limiting the impacts of serious and violent crime, which I've just touched upon. Third objective is then review and respond to ASB, antisocial behaviour, and then very much supports the partnership's approach to tackling ASB, which aligns itself with the recently introduced Home Office antisocial behaviour plan, which every partnership has introduced in effectively tackling that. The fourth objective then is to identify, respond to and support vulnerable people, which is absolutely important, both in this partnership and indeed in others. And then lastly is to identify and monitor locations of increased concern, which again goes back to the safer places that I mentioned earlier. That is it for that slide. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I'll talk through the next two before handing over to Janice. So when we're looking at the last financial year for 25 to 26, these are the highlights really. Hopefully you'll have seen that in a bit more depth within the report, just really looking at kind of the key things that as a partnership we've come together to be able to achieve. So we held our first community safety conference in October last year, and we had over 50 attendees coming along, where we did a series of workshops and presentations to the entire partnership, and it was a really good opportunity for sharing, not only with just our core members but also the wider connected organisations and teams that work towards community safety as well. So that was a really good outcome, and we were really pleased with how that event ran. We then also have worked really hard this year on integrating the ASB strike process that is looked after under the Community Safety Partnership, again because it brings partners together, to look at how we can clear an escalation pathway for those who are offending ASB and have that preventative element from it escalating too far, so we are able to monitor individuals really effectively. So that has taken place. It's still forming. Is it perfect? Not necessarily, but we are definitely working towards that, and so it's providing a really good framework for partners to be able to engage with individuals and what that looks like and what support they need around them. As part of that then as well, we completed an ASB impact assessment, which you should have been able to find in the appendices of the report. This was a large engagement effort that we undertook, and were able to really discuss the core issues with members of the public. We did that through a variety of methods reflected in the report, and have assigned recommendations from that, which the subgroups will hold moving forward into this financial year and look to pick up. And then we've got our place-based response planning. So that's our safer places that Jason has mentioned. And again, that operates in an east, west and central method, so that we're able to really cover the entirety of Newport, and then just pick up on some key areas where we know we've got either concerns raising or we've got things to deal with. And so that has associated action plans with it as well, that as a partnership we can engage with and share out those actions appropriately, but really make sure we're monitoring them together from that strategic point of view for our strategy. So that's kind of the key achievements. Those have all really built this year, and we're looking forward to being able to grow those further in this year and build upon the work that we've done last year. So we're just going to look at a little bit of data. I won't go into it into too much depth, because we are intending to have a interim strategic needs assessment that you should be able to look at in our next mid-year scrutiny. So that'll be in more detail there. But this is a snapshot of the last 5 years. It's slightly enhanced from what is in your report, which is a 2-year comparison. What we're seeing this year from last year is a 4% reduction in total crime. But what you can see is that actually we're in line with Gwent as a whole. It's not significantly different. We've had bumps and things like that, and this is reported crime, so just to bear that in mind. And we can see where our real touch points are in terms of predominant crime types there in the bottom graph. But as I say, there'll be more on that to come in our next scrutiny, mid-year scrutiny, so we'll be able to provide a higher level of detail on that. Jan, I'll hand over to you and I will change the slides.
Thank you. So just to talk through the funding. So just as an example, this partnership doesn't hold a centralised budget. So we rely on multi-agency working and bids to access grant funding to be able to do the work that we do as a partnership as a whole. So sorry, my brain just went then. So this includes funding that we've accessed during that period was from the Home Office for the Safer Streets initiative. So we had a summer and a winter initiative in the city centre, which enabled more visibility, and some work that we did with service areas and partners across the city. We also have funding from that pot for the night ambassadors, and there's some information on the slide here about how effective the night ambassadors are and what that funding is used for. So really pleased to be able to access that funding again for this year from the support from the OPCC and the Home Office there. We also have funding from the OPC to work on our coordination for the partnership, and also some other projects that support the partnership work. So Helen's already mentioned the antisocial behaviour impact assessment, which was used, that fund was used for. And we've also developed a schools knife crime programme that's getting really positive feedback from our pupils around the engagement and how our Year 6 pupils in particular are engaging with the content, because it's got a local flavour. So it's created, and it's spoken word exercise from one of our local poets. So really positive impact so far from that one. So just an outline there of the funding that we receive. So moving forward to this year, so we've already started working on some of these. I think what's important is that the partnership recognise that despite all of the work that's going on, it's not always visible, and we're not always kind of, the community don't always see what's happening with there. So we have mentioned a number of achievements throughout the last year, but we do recognise that there's still some challenges across the city in relation to perception of crime and of community safety as a whole. And we know, Helen touched on the data, but we do know that some of that is because there's low reporting rates in certain areas. And we've been working with kind of our partners to be able to do a campaign on how to report crime and how that response can be triggered. So the important thing for us is building confidence and resilience in our communities across the next year. And we're doing that through the response plans, through the place-based work that we're doing, so we can give accurate information to people on what matters within their communities. And we're also working with the intelligence team subgroup to work on that stronger evidence and reporting, ready for the aim of building confidence and then reporting back in more accurate kind of evidence-based information for both the scrutiny members, but more importantly for our residents. So I'm going to hand back to Jason just to finish off.
Yeah, so thanks, Janice. So that ends the presentation this evening, and as a partnership, we'd just like to extend the invitation to anybody online to ask any questions or to become involved in a discussion around some of the content that we've just presented to you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, everyone, for that. What I would ask for, if any of the cabinet members wish to come in, if I would check with Councillor Mark Spencer, would you like to come in first of all?
No, I'm fine with everything that's been said, Stephen. Thank you.
Nope, thank you very much, Councillor Spencer. And Councillor Hughes, would you like to come in at all?
Just to thank members of the partnership, Chair, if that's okay, for the work that they have undertaken this year, and obviously we'll be available for questions forward. Thank you.
No problems, and I'm sure but either or will be able to come in throughout the conversation depending on what's been mentioned anyway, so I appreciate that both. Thank you very much there. Okay, so we do have some questions. What I will do is start with Councillor Screen there. So Councillor Alan Screen, if you would like to come in with your question. I know some other questions will come off the back of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks to all the team and the partners working to try and make our city safer. It's much appreciated. Yeah, the one concern I got is you look at the stats, they're objective measurements, okay, and we can agree on them, presumably, as long as they've been measured properly, but public perception always seems to be different, particularly on social media. So how can we sort of close that gap between what the stats say and what the public perception very often has a much more negative view of crime in the city. Is there anything we can do to try and shift that perception, make it more positive? Thank you, Chair.
Do you want me to come in on that one?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I think there's a number of things that we can do to improve and break down that perception, because often there's a stark difference between perception and reality. But there's within our gift, I think, to improve people's perception of how they feel in terms of their safety and the way in which partners and indeed the wider partnership is working. A lot of that is around our communication, and I think we've talked about it previous scrutinies. I think as a partnership, we can do far more in terms of promoting and showcasing all the work that we do as a partnership in terms of the activity, particularly the positive outcomes. And I think if we do that regularly on the basis, I think that'll start to inform the narrative around the area of Newport being a safer place to live, reside and visit. So I think there's much more there we can do in terms of communication. I think engagement as well is really trying to understand our communities and understand what their local priorities are, but more importantly that we respond as a partnership to those priorities. And again, going back to the communication bit, is making sure that we promote "you said, we did," but do it in an expeditious fashion, as opposed to not doing it at all or doing it further on down the line. But also visibility. I think it's really important that we are seen in our communities and that we are seen to be seeking to make a difference in people's lives as well. So I think those three things are absolutely important. And I suppose the fourth thing, which is where we need to get to as a utopia, is to work with our communities, so our communities work with partners to own the issues as well. So they feel like they're part of resolving the issue. So I think those four key areas for me, Councillor Screen, are really key going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Jason. That's I think it's about changing the narrative, isn't it? Somehow changing that narrative. We live in difficult times. I appreciate that. There's a lot of pressure, external pressure on communities. Which we're constantly trying to change. So I think it's about that change. But yeah, I think perhaps publicity of some kind, a bit more publicity, saying what we've done, what we've achieved, and so on, would probably help. But thank you very much, Jason. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can see Janice has your hand up. Do you want to come in on the back of that?
Yeah, thanks. Just on that note, I think the partnership element from us all is really important when we talk about perception. So, all of us doing comms, etc. Some of the problems that we experience as NCC, and often the Gwent Police experience as well, is then when we promote some of the initiatives that we're doing, we sometimes get the pushback as in, well, that's your job. So the important thing is that we're all working together as a partnership to be able to all of us share the successes and that narrative in when we're talking to our communities as well, and kind of passing on the strengths of the partnerships and the work that's happening. So I don't think there's one thing we can do there. I think everybody's got a role within changing the narrative across the city.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Janice.
That's great. Thank you both. And I think on the back of that, we may have some other questions there. So, Councillor James Peterson, did you want to come in on this one, please?
Yeah, I think there's a huge problem with the perception, but I do think all the hard work the partnership is doing is working. I went to town for the first time in about 10 years at the beginning of the month. I went out to have a game of pool at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I stumbled in at 2 o'clock in the evening, in the morning. But I couldn't get over how friendly it was. It's like if I read everything on Facebook and the social media platforms, you'd think it was rough. But I didn't see anybody arguing, let alone fighting. And off the back of that, I went to a family function the following Saturday, and I took all my children with their girlfriends and my wife uptown. And again, the lived experience isn't what you see on social media. And I wonder if we need to promote a bit more of the lived experience by going out on a Saturday night, talking to people who's using the services, rather than people who's at home behind the keyboard. It's like to show the good work, and then that would showcase what's actually happening in town.
No, thank you very much, Councillor Peterson, for that. I don't know if there's any comments on the other side, but what I'll do is I can see Councillor Pat Jewett is also being patiently waiting there. Did you want to come in as well there, please, Councillor Jewett?
Yeah, sure. Again, I just want to thank the partnership for all the hard work that they are doing to keep our city safe. And I just note that there is a difference between the perception of antisocial behaviour and the actual figures for antisocial behaviour. And I just wonder why that is. And so there's a baseline framework for measuring city centre confidence, but I think we're not dealing just with a city centre confidence overall, are we? Because there are different groups within the community. For example, women may have one perception of the city centre. Older residents might have another perception. Young people might have another perception. Businesses have a perception. Visitors, they have got a perception. And so all these different groups need to be, and this is my question, how are they, how are we linking into all these different parts of the community to get a broad idea of what confidence is like in our city centre?
Thank you very much, Councillor Jewett. And I can see that Helen, you wanted to come in there. Please feel free to come on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jewett. I think it's a really important point. I think perception is the one thing that we struggle with the most in Newport. I think we have for a long time, and I think we do especially at the moment. And what we've seen through doing, for example, the ASB impact assessment, we did that with a range of people at different events. We handed out kind of online QR codes during the food festival, so trying to capture visitors and how safe they felt. So we've got a really small snapshot of what the difference is between living and visiting, etc. But perception will always be a challenge, I think. But what we can do, and I think it comes through in that communication plan for this year, is look at really how we do effective dives into how people feel, and whether that's community by community. Obviously that takes time and resource, but how we can do that effectively to really see the stretch of feedback, really, in terms of those that visit Newport, those that live there, those that visit the city centre frequently, those that don't visit the city centre frequently, because those perceptions have an impact as well. You know, as the previous councillor was saying, you know, going to Newport, you know, potentially expecting a different outcome but having a really good time. You know, those are the experiences we need to capture, because those experiences do exist alongside some of the negative ones. We can't deny that those experiences are real, but they're not the total story. So how we can balance out both sides of how we can be informed by both sides, I think really matters. But that's a priority we're going to have to dig through in this year, is how we do that better and more effectively. But perception is a challenge.
Thank you very much for that. And is there any further questions in relation to that, Councillor Jewett? I take the note that he's come on camera.
No, thank you,
fine.
Chair. No, that's fine.
Thank
you for that full response as well. It's really good. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Jewett. So I think on the back of that question, I know it's more city centre focused. So I don't know if it's Helen yourself or if it's Jason, if you wouldn't mind, but just, is there anything further that you would like to add in relation to the city as a whole, not just the city centre, in coordination with like the communities, ward policing, things like that? Is there anything that you would like to highlight or bring to our attention in that regard?
Chair, are you speaking to me now, Chair? Yes.
No, I'm speaking with either Jason or Helen if they want to come in. I can see Helen, yeah, or Janice as well. If Helen, first of all, please.
Yeah, just in terms of how we're picking up kind of those experiences and the perception with our place-based groups, that gives us a really useful tool to be able to consider what that looks like, because we talk about key areas, but we also talk about any emerging things that we either as operational staff here on the ground, those that are already working in the community, what they're hearing, what they're seeing, any feedback that we've received via any, sometimes it's social media comments, sometimes it's, the reporting in, and we will look at that and we will take that into consideration. So I think the strength now that we're at with our place-based groups means we can look at that routinely. We meet every 8 weeks and we can respond really quickly where there is a need. And that's the strength of kind of those groups. So I think we can pick it up effectively there. Obviously, I can't talk to neighbourhood policing in that way, but the neighbourhood police inspectors are the chairs of those groups. So again, it's bringing that partnership together to really look at that collective response that we have to the needs of individual areas, without trying to leave any particular area out and not having too particular a focus on the city centre. They've all got their space.
Oh, fantastic. I know you mentioned Jason, it's just to give you a space. Jason, did you want to come in, or are you happy with what's been responded to?
No, I think I touched upon it at the very start. So I think the sharing of information is really critical in terms of that shared situational awareness amongst all partners. And, that's why we have these subgroups, so that we can then really focus on those that most require our services. So we talk about the vulnerable, but we also then start looking at people who then cause us the greatest harm within our communities as well. So just trying to get a real balance. The Councillor Druitt mentioned earlier around different types of communities. So you've got the elderly, the retailer community, the young. They all arguably need an element of a tailored service based on their needs. But fundamentally, what people want is that they want to feel safe within their communities, whether or not that's just living in Newport, or whether or not they're just visiting it. And I think I keep saying this time and time again, that the local authority, Gwent Police, fire, housing can't do all this in isolation. We have to flex and we have to work together. And the beauty of partnership working is that we can share assets, we can share finances, but also things such as legal powers as well. So there's a whole raft of benefits to working with each other to address some of the issues that we do experience, sadly, in Newport. But what I would say is that the CSP in Newport and Safe in Newport is arguably the most mature and well-established CSP within Gwent at the moment in terms of governance and partnership arrangements. So, and I can just see this getting better and better as the years go by.
No, that's great. Thank you for that response, Jason. And it's great to see and obviously know the partners are here on the good number as well this time. So I do appreciate that from a chair perspective, but on behalf of the committee, we do appreciate, obviously, you're all on here as well to be on hand if we need to have any questions answered that you're able to. So again, thank you for that. Yep, I can see Councillor Screen if you want to come back in there, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on the wider Newport situation, I think Newport is about 2/3 rural or semi-rural, and sometimes perceptions are that the rural parts of Newport are perhaps not getting, their fair share, a perception. And, I think it's important that we recognise that the rural areas are a different thing, a different beast, and that they are more difficult sometimes, more of a challenge, for policing and public safety. But we shouldn't forget, those rural areas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Screen there. I don't know if one of the officers wanted to make a comment on what was just said, or happy to proceed. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what Councillor Screen says, and I think when you talk about the city centre and some of the estates within Newport, there is volume, and in some of the rural areas of Newport, there isn't. But I would arguably say that when crime does take place in those areas, the impact is much bigger on that community. So we have to be cognizant of the impact that has on the community, and just to reassure Councillor Screen and others online as well, is that there is consistent ways of working with our partners, whether it be within an urban city centre or in the outskirts of Marsfield or Bishton. So it's just making sure that we share information and then we have a joined up approach to dealing with localised issues.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Jason. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Screen. I can see Councillor Jewett, if you want to come in now, please.
Yes, and thanks, Inspector White, for saying what you've just said there. And I just want to ask about working in the wider Newport. How are the partners in Safer Newport working together in the light of public perception of swift police response times, swift fire service response times, but slow, much slower ambulance service response times?
Thank you. I can see, Janice, did you want to come into this one?
No, yeah, I think we can talk to Kevin Yates. I think is on the call from a fire safety perspective. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, we don't have WAST, so Welsh Ambulance Service, are not part of our partnership. But Victoria Dyer is also on the call from Public Health and Iron Bevan, so she may be able to take that. So I don't know, Chair, if you want to go to and bless them, they obviously haven't been prepped for this, but if maybe Kevin can help answer on behalf of Fire and Rescue, and then Victoria might be able to help in relation to the kind of WAST element.
Yep, Janice, more than happy if Kevin wants to come in. By all means, Kevin, do you want to come in, please?
Yeah, I'll come in. It's a really good point, and it's not only across sort of Newport in terms of the response for the ambulance. It affects the whole of South Wales. As a service, we've got medical capability that we can support, and we've got categories where we will respond to provide emergency life-saving care, and there's a balance then when we're supporting Welsh Ambulance colleagues in terms of when they can get resources available to that person in need. More so now with the weather conditions where we are. I've just been checking our call profile. A lot of our call profile is assisting the ambulance, gaining entries and make sure that the vulnerable are safe, and we're providing medical response as well. The balance is we've only got a certain limited capability. But I think what helps us is when we are mobilised to those incidents, we can get to the communities quite quickly and those individuals, but we can also provide the intelligence that's needed to be able to escalate that ambulance and hopefully then go from an amber to a red call, and the response then is sped up then for those individuals requiring the appropriate response from ambulance services. I feel for them because they are very much stretched. And it's sometimes a capacity at the hospitals, the receiving hospitals, where the ambulances are stacked basically before they can discharge their patients. So we are very mindful about our statutory duty, but we've also got an approach where we can balance our statutory duty to respond to rescues and fires, but also with the capability to support WAST where we're needed. I hope that answers the question, Councillor Jewett.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep, thank you very much, Kevin. And I can see Councillor Steve Cox. Did you want to come in on the back of that as well, please?
Sorry, I was going to raise another issue, Chair, so I don't know if you want me to wait.
No, that's fine. If you want to come in, Councillor Cox, that's fine.
Okay. I wanted to ask about the measurement of outcomes, please. That inevitably a partnership of this sort is quite resource heavy, actually, particularly. So I put my camera on, shall I? Yeah. A partnership of this sort is quite demanding in terms of staffing time, to obviously the meetings and the reports to be written and the et cetera. And we do have in the report, we do have a performance snapshot in terms of the trends in crime in Newport, which obviously have got some quite good, promising, pleasing news. I just wondered how the partnership evaluates which bits of your work are being really effective and which are perhaps being less effective. I couldn't, you know, I really couldn't see a great deal of comment on that in the report.
Thank you, Janice. If you wanted to come into that, I saw your hand first, or between yourself or Helen. Thank you.
Yeah, if I start and then bring Helen in, because she's doing a lot of work on this. And I know we touched on this at the mid-year point about the role of the intelligence group and helping us to be more evidence informed and evidence based on our reporting and our actions. So that group, unfortunately, is taking a little bit longer than we expected or hoped to be able to kind of bring that forward. But Helen will tell you more. She's also working on the delivery plans to make them much more outcome focused. So that will help us in future reports then to be much more succinct and much more kind of direct with, for you, hopefully, for, you know, for committee members and others to be able to properly measure against some really succinct and actionable performance indicators then. So Helen, I don't know if you want to build on what I've just said.
Yeah, I was just going to reflect on really our main source at the moment is our delivery plan, where we kind of measure that against the actions that have been assigned, that we've looked at and that are in the strategy. So we measure it on the delivery plan. As Janice has said, our intelligence subgroup is probably where we know we've got more outcomes we need to achieve from that, and we've had a meeting for that today and it was really positive, which was really good. So we're hoping that we can have some more of those kind of benchmarking abilities from that group and some shared open source data, etc. But I think that, as Janice has said, one of the aims now moving forward into this year is to look at that delivery plan to make it much more responsive to impact, to really consider what that impact is, and that might look different in different ways. And again, when we engage with the community, we'd hope we'd hear the experience of that impact. I think, you know, we can see that where we've been able to do really effective multi-agency actions. I think that's where the partnership really comes in really strongly, is when we work together, either, you know, when we run days in communities where we need to, etc. So it needs to be firmed up this year for sure, and I hope that we'll be able to deliver that for you in the midterm paper in the half-year review, and be able to really show where those impact measures are, hopefully align that with some data, and then we can be able to measure that more effectively. But at the moment, the delivery plan is our main source of where we measure that work quarter by quarter, and where we see gaps, we're able to address those within the broader strategic partnership meetings.
That's great. Thank you very much, Helen. I can see Jason, if you want to come in as well there, please.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think it's easy to look at stats because it's there and you can interpret those and analyze those stats. I think it's also important around the qualitative stuff as well. So in terms of highlighting and showcasing some lived experiences where we've involved certain members of the community or the wider community in terms of some good news stories, which again comes back to our ability then to communicate and really inform people of all the good work that we're doing as a partnership. So I think it's a combination, isn't it, of quantitative data, but also back that up then with some good news stories with lived experiences, and then captured them with public confidence surveys to ensure that we are operating in that area of business.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much there for that one, Jason. Much appreciated there. I'm going to bring in, it probably is going to be a question for you again, Jason, in a second, but if I can bring in Councillor Paul Bright, I believe you had a question in relation to violence, etc. If you want to come in there, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Well, yeah, obviously, welcome the report. It's great to see all the good work being done in Newport, and we already talked about the social perception of Newport, and the stats presented in the report, you know, are really promising. You know, just over 20% of ASB down and criminal arson down, but it would be amiss not to mention the slight increase in violence. So is that attributed to better reporting, or is there actually an increase, a very slight increase in violence in Newport, do you think?
So just on that, so what we're seeing and experiencing for the 25-26 period is similar across all other local authority areas within Gwent. What we do see as an outlier compared to other 4 local authority areas is shoplifting, whereas on average 8% of all our total crime is shoplifting across Gwent. Newport, with the higher concentration of retail outlets, that sits at 11% for 25-26, and that has remained stubborn. I can honestly say, Councillor Bright, whether or not those increases as a result of better reporting. What I can say is that going forward with the uplift in some of our neighbour policing officers, and in terms of that increased visibility, which you will start and continue to see within the Newport area, that we should hopefully have people more reassured, I suppose, in terms of reporting incidents as they happen. Just as we look at violence without injury for Newport for the 25-26 period, 27% of all crime is violence without injury, but that specifically is very low level harassment type incidents as well. It's not physical violence. When you actually talk about physical violence, that sits at just 11%. So there's a real difference when people talk about violence against a person. You've got actual causation of injury, and then you've got those that is not injury at all. So it's really important that we define what both are. But just some reassurance, if it is reassurance, that it's just not Newport where we've seen those increases. It is across the other 4 areas of Gwent.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Dan. I'm assuming that's your question, Councillor Bright. Is that right? Yeah, you've gone. That's right. No problem. If I can bring in Councillor Steve Cox, I believe you had 1 or 2 questions there. Did you want to come in, please?
Okay. When I looked through the report, one thing that sort of jumped out at me was that there are a whole range, there are various types of criminal behaviour described in the report. Antisocial behaviour, criminal damage, violence, rape, etc., etc. There seemed to be a massive omission, which is drug-related crime. Now, I don't know if there's a particular reason for that.
So I'm not sure why it's been omitted, but a lot of the drug offences and the outcomes as a result of proactive stop searches and as a result of community intelligence. 4% of total crime for the 25-26 period in Newport was related to drug offences. So the vast majority of that, 4%, is personal use and possession, and then a smaller percentage is then your trafficking, your drug trafficking, your drug supply. So I'm not sure why the data has been omitted from that report, but we are talking fairly low levels in terms of percentages impacting on the overall picture.
I think it's fair to say, actually, that in terms of public perception, going back to public perception, that there is a perception, I think, that drug-related crime is probably much higher than maybe you've suggested. I mean, because obviously that it is visible, or people believe it's visible. I mean, we've all seen the large number of electric bikes that are going around Newport, and the general assumption is that they're obviously involved in behaviour up to no good, particularly in drug issues. So it is one. It just seems to me that is reasonably high in the public perception.
So, as I said, 4%. What that actually means in real terms is 656 recorded crimes for drugs within Newport for the 25-26 period. I think there's probably a balance that we need to get as a partnership. So you'll probably see very much online the videos where police officers and the like are going through people's doors and doing drugs warrants. I think we need to balance that as a partnership to really promote the prevention work that we're doing with schools, with youth groups and the wider communities as well, just to balance that out as well. So I think, again, it impacts on people's perception, doesn't it, that there is a real issue in Newport because of the amount of stuff that people see online.
Okay, right, good, thank you.
Very much for that, both. Just to double check, I see, Janice, did you put your hand up and down? Did you want it to come in?
I think one of the things that we could look at, for the next year's report or for the half-yearly one is the categories, whether we can drill down into some of the other categories that may be kind of drug related, if that makes any sense. So they might not come up in the categories as being drug offences as such. Jason's talked about those separate drug offences, but it may be that people were under the influence of drugs or kind of alcohol when those other crimes, so that's why they don't come out separately perhaps, but we just need to look into that just before we come back to the committee on that basis.
No, perfect.
And
Thank you,
that's a really good valid point. So as part of the ASB action plan that the partnership is undertaking on a tactical level, and we talk about sharing of information, which is really crucial, the data that we provide to the partnership includes thematics, so causations of ASB, and one of those is substance misuse. So we can then extrapolate causations, including drugs, alcohol, as thematics in causing ASB. So absolutely, we've got that data to hand, which is really crucial, I think. And it also then allows us to target individuals, places, and almost offers as a patrol plan for police and partners and part of this partnership in terms of concentrating on those particular areas in Newport.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I suppose separate from that as well, would there be a consideration to look at things like nitrous oxide and things like that there, which obviously is a concern in communities? You don't really see it so much in the city centre, but the wider communities themselves do. And it's a regular on, I believe, a lot of community forums. So if that could be added to that, that'd be greatly appreciated. So I just see one or two jumps there. If I can bring in Victoria. Victoria, did you want to come in as well on this one, please?
Hi all, Ymddiheuriadau from the public health team, and just to congratulate Janice and Grace and Helen on their fantastic work, and it is very much partnership approach. And going forward, we spoke to Helen this week, in terms of the Safer Places groups and even through the communities focus groups, there will be a representation from our team around substance use to sit on those groups, because we talked about actually the demand that is fueling the sort of possible criminality around drugs, and are we looking at that? So hopefully going forward, that will be part of those Safer Places and part of that prevention around substance use and the demand for residents for those substances. And so yeah, just to reiterate that. And in terms of sort of the point earlier around engaging with certain populations and groups, I think again through the communities of focus group, where there are the most vulnerable groups that we are able to access, and we've got some great networks on those groups and subgroups and task and finish groups around partnerships that we can really meet the needs of those sort of more vulnerable groups, both on, I think, community safety, but also around health. And perception of crime also impacts your health and well-being, so we're looking to sort of bring some of that in as well through those groups. But it was just to add that hopefully going forward, substance use and a representative from the public health team will be sitting on those groups.
That's great. Thank you very much, Victoria, for that update as well. And we look forward to hearing more about that as it develops, obviously in the next reporting period, etc. So I do appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Cabinet Member Councillor Spencer. I can see you've been waiting a little while as well. Do you want to come in there, please?
Just quickly, thank you, Chair. I want to come in here because I have to leave in a few minutes. However, before I go, I'd like to just say to keep up the good work the teams for what they're doing. Listen, we're never ever going to get it right in the public side, especially some of our residents. And I do know there are a few problems which are occurring at the moment around early in the morning, but I'm sure we'll get it right eventually. And I'd just like to say, keep up the good work. and thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Cabinet Member, for that. And obviously, wish you well in this heat, obviously, as well, before you leave. So keep safe there.
That's why I haven't turned my camera on, because you wouldn't like what you see. Okay. Bye.
No worries, Cabinet Member. Thanks very much there.
Bye now.
Okay. So if I bring in my councillor colleague, Steve Cox there, I think you wanted to ask a question about the funding side of things. So did you want to come in, councillor?
Okay, I'm not sure what people within the partnership can do about this, but it just seemed to me that obviously there's a tremendous amount of excellent work taking place, and there's clear evidence that it's having an impact. It's an issue, crime is an issue which is obviously very high in the public mind and public perception, but it just seemed to me the financial basis of the partnership is so vulnerable, depending on grants from from various sources, differing sources, but it would appear without any guarantee for how long those grants are going to be available. And I don't know whether that is an issue which really has been discussed across partnerships, or maybe brought to the attention of council leaders, or been pursued through any other possible avenues in terms of putting pressure on to make the future of the partnership much more much more predictable and much more sustainable.
Thank you, Councillor. I can see, Janice, if you want to come in to answer that one. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I know I touched on funding in the presentation. I think what's important to note is that's for projects over and above what each agency already does. So we are really, we work collaboratively as a partnership. So if we think about patrols, etc., we look at, even though it might not be budgets and money, how do we get better use out of the partnership? So, is it one community safety warden with one police officer, etc., so we get that better use. But yeah, and where there has been an issue, we do work together as partnerships to resolve. So we did have an issue during this period, actually, for the Business Against Crime partnership and the radios. So all partners of Safer Newport agreed to contribute towards that cost to be able to keep it up. So that's another avenue that we've got. Sam is on the call, I believe, from the OPCC as well, who again is one of those instrumental agencies that kind of support the work of the partnership. And we all know that there's work happening within 2028 that might impact on that. But the Safer Newport partnership, one of the key standing agenda items is risk. And those discussions are being had as part of the partnership right now, to prepare us for when that might change, and how can we be prepared. And there will be kind of reports going to cabinet members, etc., and the leader, once we get more of a kind of an idea of how that might impact upon the partnership. I'm not sure if that helps, Councillor Cox. Just to say we're on it, and we know it's a risk, and we do work closely. Yeah, we do work closely together to try and resolve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Councillor Cox, did you have any other questions that you wish to raise there whilst you're on there? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cox, I didn't get a verbal response come through. Did you want to come back in for anything?
I'm sorry, I switched my mic off. No, thank you. That's fine. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor. So the next one I'll bring in is Councillor Alan Screen there. I believe you had a question maybe about CCTV. I know we spoke earlier, it might not be able to be answered basically on here, but seek an answer if you wish to ask that question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I noticed in the report about CCTV, I just wonder whether we have an update on that, because I think that's very important for residents to know that, at least in the city centre, we got adequate surveillance, and that might help. If that was working well, then that would help then to perhaps allay some of the negative perceptions that people have got. That we do have this system up and running. So is there an update on that, please?
Thank you, Councillor. And I suppose the other one as well is the understanding in some CCTV areas that have been put up as well, one or two of them are being destroyed. So there's obviously a somewhat need to capture the behaviour that's going on. But is there anyone that would like to come in, or just to reassure us it will be picked up in the background there if it can't be answered today? Yes, Janice, if you would like to come in, please.
Yeah, I wonder if Paul Jones, Strategic Director, would like to come in on that point, but it's definitely something we can follow up as well for committee members if Paul would prefer.
Yep, that's fine. I'm happy to bring Paul in if he's here. Yep, thank you.
I can come in briefly. Chair, sorry, Rhys Cornwall is in Thailand and Matt Cridland is watching The Cure, so I'm fifth reserve. But yeah, so CCTV, the main CCTV that you're talking about for crime in the city centre, the Cabinet invested a significant amount of money in this recently to upgrade what is quite an old system. So although most of the cameras remain working, there'll always be ones that go out from time to time. The system is quite old and it's creaking. So as well as replacing it with modern cameras, that will also use more technological solutions to actively activate when suspicious behaviour is pertaining to. Chair, you mentioned the ones that were vandalised. I think that's more the low-level sort of ones that we put on for example, for like fly tipping and the like, which are prone to vandalisation. They're cheaper cameras that we install that record only. So obviously that's problematic, but where they are vandalised, we'll then go back in with more discreet or more robust cameras, which does take a bit longer, that's all, to ensure that we're monitoring the areas. Obviously, if someone vandalises a CCTV camera, well, there tends to be evidence of who's done that shortly. So, but those are sort of processes in training I wouldn't be able to discuss here. Hope that helps a bit, but we can get a fuller response from the experts later.
No, I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you very much for coming into that, and I appreciate, obviously, it's somewhat that we can have in the public domain, so thank you very much for that. In terms of the next question, I believe I've had here is Councillor Pat Jewett. I believe you had a question about the night ambassadors, please.
Yes, I did have, Chair, but I think that has actually been answered now.
Yep, no worries at all. Thank you very much, Councillor. Did you have any other questions prior to this? Is there anything else lingering in your mind?
Yeah, well, the report acknowledges that the partnership is stronger at reporting activity than demonstrating impact. And so what's the timescale for the partnership to move from activity-based reporting to outcome-based reporting?
Thank you. And yep, Janice, if you want to come in there, please. Thank you.
Yeah, just it links to the question earlier about the delivery plan, and we're hoping to bring that back to the 6 month with kind of a more outcome-based and impact-based delivery plan than we've got at the moment. Yeah, just to be able to help with all of those things, really. But so it's going to be an interim delivery plan and an interim strategic needs assessment. So it'll probably take us, the rest of this year to get it where we need it to be. But it's certainly what we're working on at the moment, is to change from activity-based to outcome-based. I think it's one of those things that as a partnership develops, we move to the next stage. So, the partnership was in a stage where we had to concentrate on kind of delivery. Now we're kind of taking it to our next stage, to outcome from delivery and impact of delivery. But thanks for the question, really useful. Thanks.
Thanks, Jan. Yeah. And Chair, just on that, I just want to pay tribute to the huge amount of excellent work that all the partners put in, and this is making Newport a stronger and safer place.
No, that's great. Thank you very much for that support, Councillor Jewett. I'm sure colleagues on the committee will also agree with you there on that side. Just to double check, there was no other questions that you had, Councillor Jewett. Was that everything that you wanted this evening?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor, for that this evening. So I'm just going to start doing a round robin in a few moments there, but I suppose the two just to raise, because it haven't been raised, and just if there's any updates there about the Women's Charter, first of all, is there anything, any updates in relation to that proceeding? Yes, Helen, if you want to come in for that one, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, so we have got a final first draft that is currently waiting for a forward to be written for it before it goes more wider circulated than that. What we are stuck at is a bit of a funding impasse in terms of being able to move to the next stage of public consultation around public messaging and developing training. So that's where we are at the moment, but the toolkit and partners have been involved in that. That's at that stage. So we're just waiting for kind of some funding doors to open to allow us to move into the next stage, and then hopefully we can get that sorted in this financial year so that we've got a robust offer in place for businesses and for the public.
No problems, Helen. And just where you said there was a funding impasse, just with that term, is there anything that we can support with in terms of the committee or anything else like that there in that regard, or is it just waiting for funding allocation to be for this particular field, or what's the likelihood, or is there any way that we can help or annoy people, if you will, to be able to help? I think Tracy would like to
I'll
come
let
in as
Tracy
well.
answer that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. That's really helpful. I think we're probably not at the point where we've explored those avenues yet, but if the committee was so minded to support the development of the strategy, you know, and we will need to explore funding opportunities, I think that support would be helpful. I don't think we need you to particularly commit on funding, but if you're supportive as a committee of the strategy, then we'll be able to take that support forward, perhaps.
I think I hopefully speak on behalf of the committee. I'd be very much in support of that and support obviously any consultation, things like that moving forward, because it's one area that would help the partnership in that side, and we see it would benefit the work already done. So I'm sure, unless being corrected by colleagues, that I think you have the go ahead on that side to have that support. So thank you very much for that, Tracy. Thank you. Okay. The other one there, I know it's probably not mentioned so far, just about the partnership, and I know about Safer Newport, sometimes it goes amiss, but is there anything that people wish to raise about trading standards? Because I know that works in partnership alongside the teams with the police, environmental, things like that. Is there anything they would like to raise, just to give them, you know, a kind of shout out that we know that they're making Newport safer? And also, if there's any other teams that you wish to make us aware of that we haven't seen quite yet, is there anyone that needs to be raised, just so it's on our horizon, to make sure that we're aware that they're doing the work as well functioning? Is there anyone else that would like to come in? Janice, yeah, please.
Yeah, and Paul may want to come in after me. I just think that the whole kind of strength is that partnership approach and the things that we do together. You know, we all do our own bits, but actually it's the strength of the partnership initiatives that make a difference. So if we talk about the amazing work that the Trading Standards team do, often their initiatives are, you know, kind of jointly with Gwent Police as an example. So I think there are examples throughout the report that show that strength across Newport through NCC internal partners and our kind of wider partners through the partnership. But Paul, I know, would probably like to thank kind of his internal teams for the amount of amazing work that Trading Standards and environmental health, etc., all, you know, kind of build towards that, making Newport safer.
Sure. Yeah, totally agree. Trading Standards team, environmental health, done excellent work in Newport. Great partnership working with the police in terms of closing down challenging businesses and other things that you'll see in the press. They work really hard, and we have some good outputs from them, and it's all done joint working. So great example, really.
No, fantastic. Thank you very much there, Paul. And just to confirm, is there any other teams that wish to have a shout out at all? Just so we know if they're doing some work in the background. Is there anyone else that we haven't mentioned? Is there anyone else that needs to be mentioned, just to bring their work onto the horizon at all in the public domain? Yep, Janice, if you want to come in, thank you.
Sorry, me again. I just want to whether it's useful to put in the public domain the partners around the table. So obviously we've got NCC, we've got Gwent Police, we've got Fire and Rescue Service that you've heard from today. We've got an Iron Bevan and an Iron Public Health Board that public health team that Victoria obviously has represented today. We've got the probation service that are really key partners around the table. We've also got the OPCC, and Sam's had to drop off, but he's been really there. I think it's really important. For me, it's been really positive tonight that it's actually to have the partners around the table as well, to show in action as well for committee members that it is a partnership, and we couldn't do anything with without all of those wider partners. So that's been really positive, I think, tonight, to actually see partnership in action. So yeah, there's too many teams, I think, to call out individuals, but a definite kind of thank you to all partners for all the work that goes into kind of working together to be able to make Newport safer.
No, fully agreed with that, Janice. And that's obviously on the side of the committee, just to make sure that the work doesn't go unheard and unknown. Yeah. So obviously on that side, so I do appreciate that to make sure that the committee is well aware of it, just to ensure that we know about that work as well. So we have a full appreciation of the work being done by the partnerships there. So in that terms, I suppose, is there any things from colleagues, if I do a round robin? So is there anything from you, Councillor Peterson, in terms of any feedback or any recommendations that you wish to add in from what you've heard today at all?
Yeah, it's like the partnership seems to be working really well. And I think it's just going to go strength to strength. It's like you've got the objectives going into this year's and moving to the outcomes based. I think that's where we start seeing the fruition of the hard work rather than just relying on the stats. So I'd just like to reiterate my thanks to all the partners and NCC.
No, that's great. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Peterson there. I can see, Councillor Screen, you've got your hand up there if you would like to come in there, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was trying to lower my hand to let somebody else come in first. But yeah, just one query. When you look at the stats, we got ASB incidents have actually fallen, which is really good news. But violence, with or without injury, has actually gone up. I just found that a bit difficult, if you like, to understand. Do we class ASB differently to violence? Just a bit more explanation, really, for that.
Thank you. I would suppose maybe Jason. Yep, Jason, if you want to come in there, thank you.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm still trying to get the data up again, but my understanding was that for the 25-26 period, crime had gone down and ASB had marginally gone up.
Is there a definition, Jason, as well, just about the difference between violence and antisocial behaviour, what line crosses over, or if any violence is considered within antisocial behaviour at all? I think that's what Councillor Screen was seeking clarity on, if that's okay, please.
Yeah, so violence can be the apprehension of violence, either physical or the apprehension of violence taking place. So whereas ASB is split into three categories, you've got nuisance behaviour, personal behaviour where people are being targeted but not necessarily committing offences such as violent crime or anything else. And then you've got environmental, and we see it time and time again, particularly in the rural parts of Newport where people are on off-road bikes causing damage then to sort of ecosystems and stuff like that. So there's three distinct definitions of ASB, the three categories, but they are not crime related, whereas obviously things like harassment and physical violence is a crime category. So there's a distinct difference between what is ASB and what is crime. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Yeah, that clarifies it a lot for me, to understand that those distinctions. Yeah, thanks very much.
That's great. Thank you very much there both, and thank you for that question, Councillor Screen. So the next one I've got on my list is Councillor Bright. Do you have anything that you wish to add? Any recommendations, comments, or questions there, please?
No, Chair. No. That's
no.
It's all been covered.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Steve Cox.
No, only to say thank you. That it really it's very encouraging actually to read the report, and I think it's already been referred to previously that often the public do have a different perception than and just to really say that I just hope very much we can do that we do all that we possibly can to make the public appreciate just what the true picture is in terms of Newport, and the true picture, for example, of going down the city centre. So no, that just thank you, and it's been quite encouraging.
That's great. Thank you very much there, Councillor. So Councillor Pat Jewett, if you want to come in, is there anything that you wish to raise, recommend, or anything else like that, please?
Nothing more, Chair. Thank you.
Nope, thank you very much there. As far as I understand, I think that's my committee members that I've gone through that are here. Yes, that's fine. I've got a cabinet member there in Jason Hughes. Would you like to come in, Councillor? Just anything that you've heard this evening to take back or anything else like that there, please?
Hi, Chair. Yeah, I think I'm hoping that from tonight that you've come to realise that we've got an exceptional team really working across the city centre. We've mentioned the word perception a lot, but that's not to take away from the fact that we know that we have challenging problems, and it's a very complex city that we live in, and lots of things are impacting on the safety within the city at the moment. But that's not to say that there isn't a perception issue that we've got to deal with, and there's a reality issue that we've got to deal with for lots of these businesses that are having a difficult time at the moment. What I am very confident about is that we've got the right people in the right place to be able to deliver on that, and that's what we look forward to bringing back this in the next period. Is that that's the area that we'll focus on, because what you'll have found from this evening is that we've got a team that really wants the very best outcomes, and that's what we'll work very hard to ensure that we deliver. Thank you.
No, thank you, Cabinet Member. And obviously the side of things that we mentioned about the Women's Charter and things like that, there, if there's anything that you think can be of help, if even through the offices and through yourself, if you can let us know, we'll be more than happy to obviously have that discussion about how we can support that further as a committee. So do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Just to double check, is there anyone of our invited guests in from the partnership that would like to say any final words before we go into the summary and what was brought up? Is there any other comments? I would take that as a no. It's gone silent, a little bit of a tumbleweed. That's fine. Oh yeah, Jason, if you want to come in, yeah, please.
Just to thank everybody. Really, the whole part of this is to be challenged, and as a partnership, we want to continually improve to get better, but also to provide the best service as well for the communities in Newport. So it's been a really healthy debate tonight. So I thank everybody online for those questions. But we need that constant challenge in order for us to start thinking about the service that we provide as a partnership. And we can only do that if we're going to be constantly tested. So again, a big thank you to everybody.
No, that's great. Thank you, Jason. And in your position, that means a lot as well. Thank you very much there. And on behalf of my colleagues, thank you. Great, thank you. And if I can bring in Neil now for the next parts, if you can come in with the summary and recommendations, etc., and then go into your report when ready there, if that's okay, Neil. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. Quite a few comments and recommendations made by the committee. The committee wish to thank all the partners for their work in helping to make Newport a safer place. Also welcome the attendance at the meeting. We can note that it's important for both the committee and the public to see the partnerships working together in a positive way. The committee also welcomed the outcome-based reporting for future reports as well. Committee recommended that the partners work together to change the narrative around crime and community safety by doing more to publicise the positive action already taken and planned future activities, promote more of the lived experience of people using the services. A comment from Councillor Screen about recommending the partners ensure that rural areas of Newport are not overlooked in the community safety work. Requesting that future reports include drug-related offence data, including nitrous oxide use, where available, to provide the additional context on community safety trends. And also the committee wished to provide the support of the development of the Women's Charter. Other than that, I think I've collected anything, unless there's anything else you wish to include.
No, that's it for me. And just a quick check from colleagues. Is there anything else colleagues feel is amiss, or is everyone satisfied with that there, please?
Yeah, sounds good.
That's fine. Thanks, Chair.
Yep, by the sound of it, that's fine. Thank you very much there. Perfect. Thank you very much there. And our invited guests can leave now if you're happy to do so. And obviously get some fluid in and keep safe there during this hot weather there. Thank you for everything that you do, and to your colleagues there.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you
Thanks,
all.
committee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank
Thanks for
you.
your time.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Neil, do you want to go through the your report there, please, as part of our advisor reports?
Thanks very much, Chair. So just to advise the committee of the actions and outcomes monitoring pages, as you can see that we've included colour coding now to make it more, visually better for members to see where the outcomes and actions are going. So we've got green for those ones which have been completed, and we've received feedback, back from officers and give to officers. Amber is the ones which are ongoing, which could be more of a long-term recommendation or outcome, and the red ones are the ones that are outstanding, waiting to be answered. So we'll continue to update these on every meeting. The next committee meeting would be the 7th of October. That would be the SRS update and the Gwent Regional Partnership Board annual report. And then the 20th of October would be the One Newport annual report. Also, just wish to raise to the committee, the scrutiny team have met with the partnerships team to discuss different ways we can diversify the scrutiny that we make. So, for example, could there be any other ways we can, conduct our scrutiny business? Could we, for example, for Newport Live, could we go into different venues? Have our meetings there? Are there any other, service users we can invite to the meeting to give their views on the services they've been provided with? So what we've done, we've come together with a table of our thoughts at the moment. We'll send this out to the committee. If you've got any views or recommendations on anything we could include or possibly look into, that would be, greatly appreciated. And that's everything on my end, Chair.
No, thank you, Neil, for that and the work that you do there. Thank you. And I suppose just additional to that is like any witnesses people want to bring in, things like that there. Anything that can help us in the work that we do, please, don't hesitate to raise that. And we can obviously look at that moving forward. So appreciate that as always. So if you can consider that moving forward, if you let myself or the scrutiny team know, that'd be much appreciated. So I suppose on those points then, it moves on to the minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 25th of March 2026. If I can have a proposer that they are accurate or correct, or is there any points of correction or clarification on those, please?
Propose the minutes, Chair.
Yep, propose. That's fine. Thank you. And just to double check, there's nothing else. Is anyone for seconding, please?
Yeah.
Yep. Councillor Peterson.
I'll second.
Yep, brilliant. No worries at all. So unless there's anything else there, I will bring this meeting to a close, and I just thank you all for your attendance and for your questions and for your participation today. It is greatly appreciated as always. And again, as I keep saying there, but keep safe during this weather, keep fluids in, and look after yourselves and your families there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Right, bye. Thank you.